This is surviving the music industry.
That sounds sick.
I didn't think about how that sounded.
Good evening, good morning, good night, good afternoon. I hope it's all good, whatever time you're listening to this. Thanks for tuning in to Surviving the Music Industry, SMI, as I like to call it, in my current bedroom quarantine studio situation. I'm Brandon Harrington. This is my podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you're brand new to this thing, let's set those expectations up, okay? I feel like this thing is starting to become a thing. It has been a thing. I mean, we're approaching closer to around 200 episodes. You think everybody might get the hint here. Surviving the music industry, it's all about me, and I get to talk to, some pretty gnarly people. Ana Cristina Cash is one of those interesting folks out there in the music landscape. They're doing things. But first off, how's everybody doing? Everybody feeling okay? I hope we're living our best quarantine, locked in locally. You're not locked in abroad. Maybe somebody is. I don't know. But I hope everybody's doing okay for what that's worth. I'm here for you. Let's talk it out. I'm a misery loves company kind of guy. We can definitely go there if we have to. We're living in such a world and state of positivity and make me feel good. Oh, trust me, we need that stuff. I mean, I'm not knocking it, but if you're looking for something like that for me, you may be knocking on the wrong podcast door. I'm just saying. Self-inflicted negative realist I am. I kind of see, I don't reach for that positivity note at first glance. And that's a tough thing for me. I always write sad songs. And sometimes if somebody's like, hey, let's write a fast song, it ends up being a sad, fast song. But it's such a weird thing in right now we all know what the situation is, but especially where we're trying to do the thing and I'm kind of restarting my career, like as a songwriter, working behind the scenes in music rather than being on stage all the time. I'm just getting too fat. I got fat dad bod. That's I can just hear myself getting fatter through this quarantine thing too. Yeah. And we've been doing the thing as well as, you get food and you just eat the food that's around your house because there's kind of nothing else to do. Say you work out, but what good does that do? So I can just really hear myself getting fatter. But anyway, came off the stage. I don't know. What is that, 5 years ago? And just kind of doing the songwriting thing. And here recently, maybe about a year ago, I guess, I kind of said, I'm going to figure out what I can do as a songwriter by myself. So I've chose not to do any co-writes or anything and kind of figure out what I bring to the table. And 2020 was going to be my year. And lo and behold, what happened in 2020? The Ronas, the COVID-19 happened to us. I think that we're all in a state of trying to figure it out, right? We're trying to make sense of everything in our head or those next steps and what to do. And I mean, no matter if you're that mill guy working in a factory and you're listening to this thing, you're part of the gym pop, you got laid off, you're trying to figure out next steps for you and yours. To the musician trying to do the same thing, right? You're not doing those gigs because you can't go out in public, right? Especially mass volumes of people. That's kind of a no-no sitch right now. But I think no matter what, there's always a resiliency in our heads, or at least there is one in mine. Yeah, I do tend to go to that negative side, but I don't know. I'm also resilient. I always think I'm much more of a reactor. If something happens right in front of me, I just kind of jump in and just do it. And so, I don't know. I hope you guys can kind of react to the situation instead of wallow in that self-depression blanket that's so easy to kind of get in. But that's a real thing too. Mental health in this time. People trying to stick to their sobriety. That's got to be tough. I mean, we talk about all these kind of different things in the course of these conversations, and hope everybody just stays safe and healthy. Try to stay in a good space. whatever that means for you and yours, okay? We're always up to talk about it. I'm at SMI Podcast on those socials across the board. Of course, you go to smipodcast.com. Send us an email. Again, I really hope everybody stayed safe out there in this weird-ass time that we all kind of find ourselves. And it's no different. We're all trying to figure things out, change things up. We're manipulating our lifestyles to the current state, especially for us in the show. I brought all the equipment back to a bedroom in my own house, and my family's talking in the background. They probably don't even know I have a podcast to begin with. But I'm sure Ana Cristina Cash had to change some things up. She phoned in, have a conversation with us about this new record she's releasing. She phoned in from Cash Cabin Studios, from the little Cash compound that they got going on over there. She's married to John Carter Cash. She married into this Cash legacy. We don't tap into that a lot. We stick to the person of Ana Cristina Cash because she has this record coming out, Shine. It's coming out April 24th. So be sure to pre-save, pre-order, do the thing, go to your streaming service, go check it out. She's got songs already released. But she phoned in, we talked about her life, and she's a really interesting person. That's what caught my attention in my eye. She's the first Hispanic woman to sing the national anthem for the Prez, kind of getting sworn in 2005. Oh, George Dubs Bush. Do you guys remember when it was fun to make fun of a president? And he took it, and it was great, and it was fun. You kind of look at the current situation, you think, well, things weren't that bad, right? So, nonetheless, pretty impressive thing for the first Hispanic woman to do this. And she's also big on education. She's going to school, doing the thing at Harvard. So we talk about education in her life. And we do some advocate talks, too, because I realized this was a pattern in her life. She released the song Broken Roses. It's on the record. It talks about mental health and substance abuse. And there's a music video and everything that captures that, especially in the current state where we're in, where people are self-isolated and stuck with their own mental headspace and thoughts. The song is pretty timely right now. But an advocate of sorts. But on this record, too, there's the fun murder songs that I think it's kind of a little bit of a throwback of folk and country music, just made up songs, Johnny Cash style, am I right? So it was fun to tap into the record, to talk about the record. We talk about all these things, but we talked about her growing up in Miami. She was part of a television show that was huge and massive, lasted for 53 seasons. And we talk about that. We talk about her parents and the Cuban Revolution. They're Cuban immigrants, and then she was raised in Miami. So here we are. We're just kind of jumping into it. And we're just kind of getting to know her over the phone. So when you're done listening to this conversation, be sure to give her a follow at Ana Cristina Cash. And, of course, go to anachristinacash.com to go check out the record and, of course, all our past music. But, again, here we are. We're just kind of getting to know each other. And we kind of realize we're different planes of the current state of headspace, but we meet in the middle.
We're doing well, just adjusting to the new life in quarantine, but we're doing okay. We're trying to stay positive. I get dressed up every day still, just, trying to make life happen.
Oh,
How about you?
You're that kind of person. Get dressed every day.
Well, sometimes.
Keep it positive. Oh, wow. That's impressive. I feel like I'm a cast member of The Sopranos. Like I wear sweats like every single day.
Oh my gosh. Well, here's to brighter days, right? We'll get through it.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, are you this kind of person? I mean, are you like typically a sunny side of the street kind of personality?
Well, to be really honest, it comes and goes. I'll be really frank with you. I try to do the best I can. Like I got up and I worked out today, and I made a list and crossed it off, and I'm trying to manage my time as best as I can and just be positive, and just I look at the news just once a day, really, just to know what's going on, but I don't like dwell on it. But I would say that particularly after I work out, I'm a happier person.
Oh, that changes everything.
It does, yeah. I've got a stationary bike, and that helps. I've got my Peloton, and that makes it work.
Yeah, but I'm kind of like you. I kind of steer clear for the news until, I don't know, Tennessee's been doing the like the mayor has his thing like at 10 o'clock in the morning or something. And then it's kind of like, okay, are there updates I should know about? Or is it just really just going to scare the shit out of me even more? And
Right,
it kind of ends up
exactly.
being the latter most of the time.
Yeah, same here. I mean, we're human, right? I mean,
Dude.
it's what it is.
Dude, this is where we're at. Yeah. All right. So it sounds like everything is healthy, wealthy over there.
Yeah, healthy so far. You know, just hand washing, following all the protocol we can. We've limited people obviously coming in and out of here. We're very isolated for the most part, and just trying to be as cautious as we can be and follow orders. You know, to not only not get ourselves sick, but not get other people sick as well. So we don't want to keep spreading this thing.
Dude, no kidding. Like, especially like people are still delivering food. Like, I don't want somebody knocking on my door and like delivering food that they cooked on. I mean, we got to keep these places open, but I don't know. It's such a weird state, right? Like, you want to support local businesses and
I know.
buy food and try to do the thing, but these people like deliver the food, and then like you want to, you're quarantining yourself, trying to do the best, but then I don't know. It just feels like an awful reality show that's become the most truest pre-apocalyptic situation ever.
Oh yeah. I'm with you, man.
Dude.
I'm with you.
All right. Well, I know you're from Miami. Do you still have family there?
I do. I'm from Miami. I grew up there. I left in 2010 to move to California, and then moved to Nashville in 2014. But I still have my mom and dad there, and they're all like cooped up right now. I'm like, don't go anywhere.
Yeah, I know, right? That's how you got to treat like the parentals, because I feel like my parentals are just kind of doing real life, not like in the real life in the state that we're in, but they're just kind of like going to work. Well, I'm going down to Brookshire's to get a gallon of milk. Do you really need that gallon of milk? Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Oh,
Are
I'm
you
like
sure?
totally on my parents to stay home. My mom just turned 70. My dad's like 73. And I'm like, you guys aren't going anywhere. And my 96-year-old grandmother lives with them right now. So I'm like,
Oh, wow.
none of you are going. Y'all aren't going anywhere. So
Yeah.
And then my
Yeah.
two sisters are in Miami as well. Actually, like one lives in Parkland, Florida, which is in Broward County, the county like right above. And the other one lives in like Miami-Dade County. So, and then I have my nieces that are there, and so I have so much family there, and I visit all the time for the holidays, particularly just like Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I try to make it out during the summer, but it was really such a cool place to grow up. I love Miami. It's so diverse and so much culture, and like, you know, so much Latin American food is so cool.
Oh, yeah. It's so, I know there's like one Cuban place here in Nashville, but it just does not compare. Like, it's just, there's just so much good food in Miami. And I'm a former fatty. I'm a former fat kid, and I love food so much. And
I love
Miami's
food.
just chock full of it.
Yeah, you and I like have that in common. I just love food. I don't trust people that don't eat.
Oh, 100%. We're on the same level, I'm sure.
We totally are, yeah. So, Miami's full of good food, and so is Nashville, you know. It's like I moved here, it's like, you know, the chicken and the biscuits and all this southern food. I'm like, whoa, I need to like hold my horses here and just, you know.
Yeah, but it's different though. Like Cuban food's like a lot of, you know, whole grains, and there's like fruits and vegetables and stuff, and pork, I guess. But then like coming to the South, biscuits. Gravy.
Right. Well, yeah, so Cuban food, like a lot of people, I want to like say this now, a lot of people are confused, and they think it's spicy like Mexican food or like Central American food, but Cuban food, I just want to put this out there, is not spicy. It's more so flavored with garlic and onion and like bay leaves, different things. So it is not spicy. It's very akin to Dominican food and to Puerto Rican food. So like a lot of that Caribbean food, it's not like the jerk chicken in Jamaica or like the Bahamian food, which is spicy. So it's like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Dominican Republic, kind of like really not spicy food, which is interesting.
Yeah,
So
that's
all the
why
time,
it's my jam.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's
100%.
great.
I love garlic.
I do too. Yeah, I put garlic on everything I make. So
I know we do too. Like we just literally put it on everything that we make. I mean, vampires would not like us. I mean, that's really just how bad it is in the Harrington house.
yeah. It's a good thing I married someone that eats garlic too, so we could just both smell together.
Amazing. Amazing. All right, so I do know about Miami and everything, but but you said that you moved to California. But tell me about mom and dad, though. I want to learn a little bit about them.
Sure. Yeah. So they have a very interesting story. So they were born in Cuba in two different provinces. My mom is from Camagüey, and my father is from Matanzas. And, just two different places. Matanzas is a little closer to Havana. And they moved to the United States as teenagers because Fidel Castro took over Cuba, and then Cuba became communist. And, when the revolution happened, he didn't announce himself as a communist, but my grandparents saw what was happening. They're like, okay, this country's going communist. And they were very afraid at the time because there were rumors that they were going to send the children to Russia to study and be indoctrinated into communism. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and that happened with a lot of children. So my father's story was that he and my uncle were about 15 and 16 respectively. And there was this program called Pedro Pan, which is Peter Pan. So a Catholic organization out of Miami, I think, teamed up with the CIA to bring these Cuban children without their parents to either live in foster care or to be taken care of by the church temporarily until their parents would come to the United States. So they left all their possessions. They had not a dime to their name when they came to this country. None of my parents did. And my father and my uncle lived in foster care for a little while until their parents came. And also I think it was named that because of the Pan Am flights. I believe they flew on Pan Am at the time. So that's why it was called the Peter Pan flights. So, there's a big community of those kids out there, and, they have meetings and they have reunions and everything. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Jeff Bezos from Amazon, his stepfather was one of those kids as well, was a Peter Pan kid.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And their work ethic is incredible from that generation. Like a lot of the people, since they had to make it for themselves, essentially, and nothing was handed to them, a lot of people from that generation just really made things happen. My dad and my uncle have run an air conditioning business in South Florida, a successful one since the 70s, just started from the way bottom. And, they run their business and everything. And my mom's story, she lived a little bit in the onset of communism. And she said that, there are armed people in the streets, and the police, they knew that the family was going to leave to the U.S., so she would be bullied. She'd be bullied in school. The family would be bullied by these officers and everything because they knew that they were going to leave. Essentially, so my mom actually did end up working in a labor camp peeling potatoes.
Wow.
Yeah, while the communism happened and everything. So then they moved to the U.S. My mom and dad met at a party, fell in love, had my two sisters, Eileen and Marissa and Eileen. They're 13 and 10 years older than I was born. And and just grew up in Miami. And yeah, it's, like I said, it's a wonderful place to live. And there's so many immigrant stories like that all throughout the country.
I know,
Really
but the most curious thing about me during this Cuban Revolution is that, and I guess it's partially true in a lot of, especially a communist regime, change of the tide, that the kind of the lack of history. And I mean, I know there's a lot of stories, but there's a lot of to me, there's at least always like a little bit of holes of like, well, what was this? Like, it's just so hush hush, and especially news and things that were happening inside the country couldn't get out of the country. And so it's just still such a mystery, I think, even today in this point in time, right?
Well, yes, they have people that censor everything. So the people that are there, they censor everything for them. So if there are foreign films, if there are things that that aren't in line with their policies, they'll stop people from watching that. Like anything where there's another revolution or the people going against the government, people get jailed all the time for even going to church, because like the first thing they shut down are the churches, and everything is government owned. Everybody's property is government owned. It's just communism,
Yeah. So eventually mom got out of Cuba.
Eventually mom got out of Cuba at 18 years old. Of course, learning a foreign language is difficult, and
Sure.
operating that way. And both of my parents studied and went to college. My dad became an engineer before he started the company with my uncle. My uncle became an engineer. My mom the 2 years of college and, and ended up teaching as well. So, just had to make it for themselves. Nobody was going to do it for them. And to me, that work ethic was invaluable to watch growing up, to see how people could make themselves who they wanted to become and lead the life that they wanted to lead just through effort and through hard work, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful story, especially like when you hear things like this, because I feel like, especially me swimming in white privilege, and then you hear stories like this, and it feels that, you have the world stacked against you, but then somehow you get head above water and you just come out on top, and it just makes you better as a human being and as a person. But it's not easy. Right? Especially for your parents. And I only assume for you too, because that bleeds over into your childhood, right? What was childhood like for you?
Well, certainly. I grew up in a bilingual household. Things got better when I was born. I know my dad was starting his company when my sisters arrived. They're older than I am. So things got a little better when I was born. We just had a normal life, and I showed an interest in the arts, and my mom was a great mom, my dad too, and they supported me through that. I would sing at local fairs. I would sing in church. The teachers would take me around to sing, and I felt like it was something that I could do that made people happy. And essentially just a very normal life, just hardworking folks, and, speaking English and Spanish. My grandparents lived in a community called Hialeah, where they didn't speak a lot of English, so their English never really flourished. But my parents did, because they were younger when they came to the country, versus my grandparents that were older, and it was more difficult to learn English. They just knew a few words. I remember my grandmother said she really needed like roach killer spray. So she went to a gas station. She had to the lady didn't understand her, so she had to draw a roach on a piece of paper and then start smacking the paper.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So,
Roach, drawing pictures and hieroglyphs, just trying to communicate.
Pictionary, charades.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine how hard that must be. If I moved to Germany right now, I don't know what I would do. I'd have to pick up the language quick.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I lived in the Philippines for a year, and I had to do stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool. What was
drawing
that
a
like?
picture. Well, drawing a picture of a chicken, because we where's the chicken? And you're clucking around and you're waving your arms. I can definitely sympathize in a situation like that. Yeah, but it's also the thing too that was there any pressure on you growing up in family? Did they carry this impression or this work ethic, and even this this, I don't know, this exact feeling that I'm trying to empathize. It feels so dystopian. They're kind of cast out of their homeland, and now they're in this new land, and then they're building their lives, and they meet, they get married, and then they try to distill all these things that they've learned into their children, because I think I can understand that as a parent, but I'm just trying to get a sense of, was there any pressure for you growing up and feeling that from them, from their past?
Oh, 100%. My father and mother are so keen on education. If we just strayed from education at all, they would say, look, the world is going to look down on you if you do not be the best person you can be. And that's just what they believe. So I got my 4-year degree. I studied broadcast journalism through Florida International University. I am doing a master's program right now, even just being an artist and doing all this stuff and helping just run a business as well. I'm getting a master's degree from the Harvard Extension School in creative writing and literature, because I just essentially, if I wanted to teach as well or do something or just prepare myself, it's something that my parents instilled in me forever, because you just don't know what's going to happen. 2 weeks ago, we didn't know, for example, that this entire thing was going to
Perfect example.
Not to keep going there, but it's kind of the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know our lives were going to be disrupted this way. So you just don't know.
Right.
As secure as you are in your life, and that's something I want to put out there for anyone that's listening. As whatever it is, you always need to have a plan, essentially, and that's what they instilled on me. I don't know if it's an immigrant chip on my shoulder or something from being the child of immigrants. that things can go to shit, excuse me, like anytime. So, because like their whole world went to SHIT. It's like,
you can say that on here, by the way. So,
oh, okay, good.
you can literally say anything you want. But there is that, because I'm trying to understand that for myself. And again, it just may be because I'm just trying to empathize, because I've never been through that. And just having parentals that go through such a situation like that, and then distilling that in your children. I mean, your childhood definitely looks different than mine, not just because of ethnicity, but just because of, I don't know, economically, socially. I mean, it's just so fascinating and curious to me.
Yeah, I remember the early years of my childhood. My mom sewed all of her clothes. Like when she moved, and I've heard stories of her, like when she, emigrated to the U.S., that she just sewed all of her clothes. And she went on her first date with my dad, and he called her dress ugly, and she just started crying, and she went after. She almost didn't want to go out with him again. My grandmother
Smooth move,
her.
Dad. What was
that? She was like, I know, really bad move. Like, here's this immigrant woman that can't buy her clothes, who has to sew her dress to go out, with any sort of suitor whatsoever, and he called her dress ugly,
He did
just
not
very
have any game whatsoever. Like, no.
Yeah, no game. My dad has no game. He's so nerdy anyway. So, like, and he probably said it in such an innocent way, and he was young too, but, like, she just, like, she gave him the evil eyes. She's like, I don't want to go out with you again. I worked my butt off making this dress, and you called it ugly. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So you're growing up. You got 2 older siblings. I heard that. And you're the youngest, right? Is that what I heard?
I am. Yeah. They're 13 and 10 years older than me. So I was born in 85. I think one of them born in 73 and the other one in 75. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can relate to this story a little bit. I'm the baby too. I was born in 85.
Oh, there you go. You're my age.
Totally. Yeah, but you're way more successful and smarter than I am. So I don't know where I fucked up. So growing up in Miami in the 80s and like in the early 90s, like to me, like the feeling of Miami in the 80s is like Miami Vice. I mean, was it anything like that?
So I have a few funny stories. Like, I lived in a suburban community growing up where I was shielded away. I had no idea that there were like all of these drug dealers around and like bad things happening and like drug deals. I had no idea.
100%. You were around Scarface. I mean,
yeah.
This was like your childhood.
This is my childhood. So I will say I grew up, I moved when I was 5 to another area that was very just protected, and I kind of just like rode my bike and just lived my life. And I will say that I had a front door neighbor at the time who was a successful criminal attorney, and I would see cameras outside of his house, so that the news reporters would interview him. And then my mom would tell me later when I grew up that's because he had a client or something that was a drug dealer or a supposed drug dealer, and the camera crews were interviewing him about it. So,
wow. Amazing.
Yeah. So I would see that stuff sometimes. And then in high school, and just different times, the children of these people that were in jail, like I'd meet some of them and stuff. But that's my only like interaction with any of that, really. I think I was very protected from 80s and 90s Scarface, Miami Vice situation. Yeah. And my folks like are the nerdiest people. They have nothing to do with that. So
a mechanical engineer, I can only assume
everything is black and white, and they just it's hard work and air conditioning business. And my, like I said, my mom was a teacher and a homemaker, and I really didn't see any of that stuff until I saw the movie Scarface and saw Miami Vice, and just those few times that I'd see the reporters at my criminal lawyer neighbor's house, essentially.
Yeah, that's an insane time to grow in. And I'm almost just a little bit jealous because I just grew up around a bunch of rednecks. I mean, there's something kind of cool about it, but I don't know. There's still something cool about like Miami Vice and like neon and growing up in that time. But what's interesting in your life though is that immigrant family, and you're the baby, and they're hammering education like on you, but somehow like you landed on music.
Yeah, so that's it's interesting. My parents were always supportive, but they always wanted me to have like something else going on always. And that's just them because of their upbringing. They're just afraid of, of the rug being taken out from under their children for some reason, or just like not being able to make a living off of music. But at the same time, they would take me to all my singing lessons. They'd help finance it when I was younger, support my shows, just take me wherever I need to be taken when I didn't have a car. And so there's that love there. And they also know that you can't make someone something that they're not, or they wouldn't be happy. So they're supportive in that sense, but they've always been like, okay, what else do you have going on? Like, even to this day, like, even as I'm like releasing records and everything, they're like, okay, but how's your master's program going? They're like, you would think they were like waspy parents from Connecticut. They're that like serious about education. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think for the president, oh, well, how's that Harvard education going though?
Yeah.
That's funny. But, okay, yeah. But you had an introduction to like music really early, because I know about the TV show as well. But so they're taking you to lessons, they're encouraging this whole thing. But how'd you get connected with TV at an early age?
Oh yeah, so this is a fun story. So there was this variety show. It was the longest running variety show in history until a few years ago when it got canceled. It's now defunct. It was called,
I had no idea the massivity of this show.
Oh my gosh, yes.
53
see the numbers.
seasons. Yeah, it's insane.
Sábado Gigante on Univision Network. And I was lucky to grow up in a place where they had those shows. So my chances were to sing in Spanish, essentially, because they filmed Univision, which is a monster network, and the network is still there in Miami. They it's national shows, international shows, and I believe Sábado Gigante was an international program. It would, just be synced to all of these countries. So they had this segment with children every Saturday, and the show was every Saturday. Sábado Gigante. Sábado is Saturday, and Gigante means huge. So the show is called Huge Saturday, essentially. And they played games. It was like a game show mixed with music, and they'd have like seasoned artists there, and then they had a segment with the kids. And then they'd have they do their little musical thing, and then they have competitions, and there was a number at the bottom of the TV that said, if you feel like your child has talent or has an interest in being on the show, call this number. And I would watch it with my grandma, and I would just like mimic those kids all the time. And I was like literally 6, and I was like, what can I do to be on this? Like my parents were not stage parents. I want to just throw out there. They're not at all. So
it's an important detail, because I was totally going to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. They weren't. I mean, they like when I was doing things, they wanted me to do my best, obviously, but like they never were like momagers or dadagers or insane or anything like that. So I always had the interest, even at a very young age. So I asked if they could call a number and if I could be like one of those kids. And I had no idea what that entailed. I just like sang Disney songs with the TV all the time, and I sang at school and just like at home. So I went for an audition, and the producer of the kids segment just selected me. So I started doing these little competitions, with kids. And then I'd rehearse after school, and we'd film these musical numbers too. So, and I don't have all of the tapes, and I wish I did. Like, I only have the ones that were filmed from the TV that we recorded, but I have like so many that probably Univision still has that I'd have to track down somehow. I don't even know how to do it.
Because you were there for years, right? I mean, from like 6 to well into your teenage years.
Yeah, I would say from age 6 to 13, I wouldn't do it every year, and it was off and on. It wasn't every week. But I would either, be doing a musical on the show, or I'd be doing one of the competitions, and it just spanned throughout those years. But and then the producer, she moved to Chile. Now her name is Maiten Montenegro. She was she's a big star in her country of Chile, and she was the producer of the kids segment for years for Univision Network for Sábado Gigante. And she had an academy where they helped train with dance, with acting and singing, and I was a part of her academy. So that was my early kind of education, and also it gave me a competitive edge. There were a lot of kids that were and especially the moms. Oh my gosh, I could tell you stories. I mean,
I know. You mix TV with music, and you throw kids in it. It's really, and especially in this time, this is like prehistoric, like Honey Boo Boo like situations.
This is prehistoric Honey Boo Boo stuff, yeah. And like I wasn't like that. My mom wasn't like that. But there were these moms that were just like, overly prepared, these girls. And yeah, I was one of the stronger singers, I have to say. Maybe not the greatest dancer, but one of the stronger singers. So I'd get a lot of the solos in these little segments. And just like you'd see the moms fuming, man. It was like really scary to see as a kid, like this adult that was just mad at you for existing.
They're just throwing icicles your way, and their kid, I'm sure, is just kind of like playing with dolls and could care less.
Yeah, so that's, talk about your show, surviving the music industry. I had to survive the momagers as a little child. I'd never, that's the first time I ever felt that creepy feeling of an adult like giving you the evil eye. Because like you somehow beat their kid at something,
wow.
It was really creepy and weird.
That emotional feeling. Like, I feel like, when you get on your own kids, like you kind of see that, like maybe in their eyes of fear a little bit. But then if it's like a total stranger, like that is just ice queening you, that is.
Just like a grown woman,
Wow,
it's
that's weird. Yeah.
Grown women, yeah.
That is a weird
Hi, I'm 8 years old. So that is weird. That's like
Well, okay. Well, all right. So, huge Saturday. I know it was a big thing. And
yes,
from like past stuff I kind of looked at just to even get a sense of what it was almost like, you totally correct me because you were in it. It was like Star Search mixed with The Gong Show, mixed with, so much variety in it. It was a crazy thing that was really successful, obviously. it lasted 5 decades.
Yes. One of my favorite segments on that was this guy called El Chacal. If you can even look this up.
Yeah.
He was this guy that dressed like the Grim Reaper. Literally, he just like had peeps for his eyes. And like he had this black like draped mask and this black thing. And he would play the trumpet. So people would be singing, like these adults would be competing, like singing a song, and if they were sucky, he'd like play the trumpet on them, and then they were eliminated. And like people just like love that guy. It was
Gave
crazy.
him a little toot, and they were gone.
But he was literally the Grim Reaper with the trumpet.
You got Ice Queens on stage right, and you got the Grim Reaper on left, ready to toot somebody. This is a terrifying show. Wow.
Pretty much.
But it wasn't all wasted. It was like a thing of, it kind of started your career. It's easy to say that, right?
No, it was such a positive experience. I would say it definitely started my career because it put me in touch with people that recorded others. Like there was a gentleman that composed all of our little musical numbers, and he had a recording studio. And when we actually sang with our own voices. So if I had a solo or if I had to add to the choruses for these little musical numbers, that was my first venture into a professional recording studio setting. So here I am like 7, 8, and I put on headphones for the first time. I'm working with a professional that has a soundboard and all of this cool stuff. I'm collaborating. I have to be professional at a very young age. I have to, I can't just cry or be too much like a kid in many ways.
As a kid, I feel like, like you're doing music, but you're stuck in this situation, like in a studio, where it kind of feels like, well, this isn't playtime anymore. This is a thing. And but kids don't have this fear to them. Like being a kid and like going through those experiences are way different than when you become, a teenager and more aware of yourself and the fears and anxiety of what all this encapsulates. So it's always interesting, like talking to child performers, because I never went through that, but there's a different, I think, thing in your brain that you kind of carry over through the years.
Yes, for sure. It probably wired my brain in a different way, not quite like maybe Michael Jackson style, but definitely.
Yeah, Britney Spears style, like the Mouseketeers situation.
Yeah. But I feel like it has, I think you're expected to be on at a very early age. And I wouldn't say it's bad for children because I feel like I grew into the person I am because of all my experiences. But I would say it's important for kids also to have their playtime, which I did. My parents always made sure I had my playtime, that I was doing well in school, that I was happy and healthy. If I didn't want to do one of the things I was called on to do, they scrapped it for me. They're like, you don't have to do it. No problem.
Wow. Did you have Do you feel like you had like a quote unquote a like normal like school life? Like, did you go to school or did you do homeschool because of production? Or I mean, what was like versus the life that you know versus normalcy? Like, what does that even mean? So
Throughout
do you
most
feel like
of my
you had that?
Yeah, I did. Well, throughout most of my childhood and adolescent years, I did. So I went to regular school throughout my life until I got my record deal with Sony Music Latin at the age of 15. There, I had to do a lot of work and promotional work and traveling. So I did my first 2 years of high school at a regular high school, it was Gulliver Preparatory in Miami. And my last 2 years of high school, because I had to balance a schedule with travel and be this professional that was hired by a company like Sony to be an artist, I was homeschooled. So I had a tutor, and I did school by correspondence. And now people have Zoom and all this stuff, and that's how I do my master's program now. And while I still do music and everything, but back then everything was by correspondence. So I had a proctor every day, like a tutor, and I did through a system called it was the University of Nebraska Lincoln, which they are still an operative homeschool for high school, and I'm sure their technology is like way better now. But they were a reputable institution for that, and my dad like did his research and made sure that I got the best education I could, and then from there, still continuing independently, because I left Sony after a while after the merger with BMG, because they weren't.
So did a lot of people.
Yeah, because they weren't placing as much of an emphasis on like the newer artists. They really just had to put all their full force with the eggs they already had in the basket, like the big artists that were big names, and a lot of the newer artists, like throughout the merge, the people that championed us were let go. They were laid off, and so that was unfortunate. But at the same time, I'm grateful for that experience, because I got to go in the studio with Grammy Award-winning producers, and I got to release a debut album, and I had 2 songs on soap operas that were successful. One was called Vale Todo, where my single Un Paso de Mi Amor was on it. And then the theme song to Vivan los Niños, which was a Televisa production out of Mexico. So that was very positive. And again, that was my first major record, and a totally different experience again. And juggling on the personal side, high school life, being an adolescent, just like, who am I? What am I? Just schools and lockers and groups, and who am I going to eat lunch with today? And so it's like, it was complicated.
That has to be like a weird dynamic too, because I mean, the Kid Star situation, it's not new, but then like when you throw in the mix, in today's standards, I mean, for whatever that's worth, but for you, I mean, it was kind of a new thing. I mean, we're talking like, I don't know, late 90s or so, like you signed your deal, if I'm doing the math right, or 2000s, I guess.
2000, I was asked to sign the deal. It didn't get signed till 2001, actually, just because it took a long time with lawyers and everything. But I was asked to sign since 2000, essentially.
Yeah,
15,
I
16.
got you.
Yeah. So I ended up signing it at 16, actually. So, but it was a really cool experience. And then from there, as I ventured out into writing my own songs, into playing guitar and piano and singing in English, I did all of my stuff independently. I had a record that was released in 2008 that is not online anymore. It was called Time. 2015.
I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I didn't feel like an idiot, because I feel like I know how to use the internet, but I could not find like that record anywhere, because I knew you did too, like while on Sony.
Yes, I did. And then Time is no longer there. I don't know if it just to like put it out there again or what, but it's, the music I do now is so different from that I don't know, but there are a few great songs there, I think. Then the West Coast Sessions is an album that I did in California. We're jumping now to 2015 when it was released, but I worked on it for like 2 or 3 years while I was out there. Probably 2 years, actually. Yeah. And, that was more like pop soul, a lot of jazz influence. I was living alone at the time. I was single. I was writing it out of my apartment in West Hollywood, and literally just had a dingy keyboard and was playing my guitar, and I would use GarageBand to kind of like help me write as well. And I wrote those songs, and that was produced by Chris Price. And, now the music I've released since then, I've released the Tough Love EP, which was produced by my husband, John Carter Cash. This was 2017 here at Cash Cabin Studio in Nashville. And now we're releasing Shine, which was like 3.5 years in the making. I want to say like 3 years, just because we have so many clients and so many things going on that it's hard to keep up with my personal stuff when we have so much other stuff going on. But
yeah, when I listen to your music, and especially like your career starting with Latin America Sony and then transitioning or even going into Shine, I guess, and like everything in between. I mean, there are a lot of changes.
A lot of changes within me as a person as well. Now I'm a mom. I'm married. It's a very different place mentally than when I recorded my last album, the West Coast Sessions, and just everything is different with that.
There's always this thing, and I'm always like in tune with it. Like there's this thing that, as musicians, like creatives, we don't want to be in a box.
No.
Like when you feel like somebody's like figured you out, like, no, you haven't. Like I'm just gonna flip the script and then hopefully like shock you and awe you at the same time. But then like as like the gen pop, the fan listener, they almost get shaken because they don't like that, and it's kind of like, well, do you want me just to keep making the same stuff over and over?
Yeah,
I mean,
I know. I would say, I don't know, my influences were always very eclectic growing up. Obviously, I grew up listening to a lot of music, but then as a vocalist, I love jazz artists like Etta James and Ella Fitzgerald and Dinah Washington and Sarah Vaughan and Billie Holiday. And I feel like I drew a lot of inspiration from more of the melancholic kind of vocalists for some reason, and that's still very ingrained with me. But of course, even living in Miami, I grew up with country music too. Faith and Shania were huge when I was a kid, and
that was the thing in the 90s.
That was the total thing. Like you know all about it. And Martina and all
I lived it. That cheetah print with Shania Twain, 100%.
100%. Like I gotta like do that as a Halloween costume Sunday. Just get my abs going and like wear that cheetah costume.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
But yeah, and so now there's this whole thing with women not being played on country radio as much, which bugs me because when I asked someone in the music industry once, this was about 2 years ago, like why aren't they playing women as much on country radio as the guys, even though of course the guys deserve to be played too. They're talented and deserve for their stuff to be heard. But the answer was that the programming director said that people simply don't want to listen to women as much.
Right.
And I find that hard to believe coming from the school of thought of the country music I listened to growing up, because it was so much women. We had the Dixie Chicks. We had, like I said, Faith, Shania, Leanne, all these people that would cross over into pop as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So I find it like
it's a joke
it's
to me. I laugh every time I hear that from a PD, from a program director of like, well, we don't want or people don't want to listen to the women. And to me, that's kind of like a bullshit answer of like when you tell your kids like, oh, maybe we'll see. It's like
yeah. So that's like super sketch. Come on,
there's nothing behind like even what that means whatsoever. And you're 100% right. I mean, like there was a time where like the superstars like were women, and like some of the products that just consumable products from makeup and everything else across the board that you can imagine like were sold by entertainer women. And I mean, there's tons of all that to be said. There's tons of money to be made, not just because of a split in gender and because some PD says that nobody wants to listen to a woman on radio. Well, also, you haven't played the women on radio. So how do you know if people don't or want to listen to it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's an age-old argument. And again, nothing against the men. Like they're doing great work too, but I'm all for people not saying that no one wants to listen to women. I think that's really silly. So
yeah, it's a really BS like answer.
Yeah.
I laugh every time I hear it. I just think it's funny because there's no truth behind it whatsoever. Just some 50-year-old like gray-haired guy in a boardroom just kind of said, "No, it's this."
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take it. It's ridiculous. But has that been something like you've ran across, especially like with your music? Because besides Shine, maybe, what was it, 3 years ago? Well, no, you had a Christmas thing like come out too.
Oh yeah, sorry. I forgot to mention my Christmas record, also produced by my husband here, John Carter Cash, at the Cash Cabin Studio. A Christmas album is something that I always wanted to do, and I feel like it's something that, has a life every year. Christmas comes around once a year, every year. So I always dreamed of recording a lot of the classic Christmas songs. I've got, White Christmas on there, Oh Holy Night. I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day, Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. And we have one original John and I wrote together. It's called Santa Claus is Real. So it's kind of going into like the Christmas Eve and Santa coming down the chimney and like eating the cookies and leaving them all over the place, and like kind of chronicling all of the stuff he does on Christmas Eve before Christmas, and, just saying that Santa Claus is real. And so that was a really fun record to make, and also one that spanned through several years of making it. But when I did the photo shoot for it, I was wearing really heavy stuff, and I just had my baby, and it was July, and we had to pretend it was Christmas.
Yes, of course.
And then the photographer and the art director Gina Binkley, who I love to death, they were just they were kind of like throwing like these styrofoam like snow things at me to have in the background, and then they superimposed like snow on the trees in the background later for like the record. Like if you look at the art, like in the vinyl, because we have a vinyl, a CD, and of course you can buy that digitally. But like I just remember how hot I was every time I look at that. I'm like, it wasn't cold. It was not. It was July, and
look cold.
They're throwing like styrofoam snowballs at me. Yeah, and so like the stuff would like fly in my eye, and I'd be like, and I'm like sweating, and like I'm like,
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. But with like some of those recent projects, and you've gone in the Shine, like have you felt like you ran into that, like especially with women not being on country radio or just any radio for that matter? Have you had these like the conversations or discussions like with PDs or whatever, like for your new projects?
This is what I've run into. I feel like they're, and just being frank, I was working hard on losing my baby weight after, and then like I think it was someone in the record industry was just like, oh, like you're you're kind of like not heavy, but like I don't know, kind of like.
Wow.
I feel like women, so I feel like women are judged a lot by their appearance. So I will say that, whereas men can just throw in a ball cap and they can have all the babies they want. I feel, and like the woman's supposed to take care of the babies, and then they can sing their beer songs and whatever. But like I have a baby, it's like this huge thing, and I'm expected, as a woman, expected to lose weight immediately.
Yeah, it is.
A certain way.
There is this thing that's out there, but that to me that's such like an old mentality, and especially but it's still there. Obviously, like people will throw that sling of spaghetti hate on the wall, and sometimes it sticks, and that kind of sucks because that kind of ruins or hurts like your career or momentum, like in a cycle. But I don't know. I have like no respect for somebody that says, well, this doesn't work because of this. And it's purely because of, one, we're human. And then maybe that's it. Maybe that's just a good enough excuse.
That's like just an example of some of the stuff I've run into. But again, I don't take that seriously. I have extremely thick skin, so I'm okay. I just smile and I'm like, you know what? Peace. I'm good. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I think
just walk away from the situation.
Yeah, and for men and women alike, I think just any artist has to have this combination of being vulnerable and putting themselves out there, and then creating this piece of art, and then just putting it out there to be subjected to reviews, to be subjected to other people, like opinions. And at the same time, they're expected to have thick skin and just take constructive criticism, which is important to take graciously, I believe, but you also have to do what works for you, and you have to think about your self-care and your mental health as well. So I've gotten really good at balancing that stuff.
Well, that's the thing
worlds.
that that bugs me, especially when like people are, doing this quote unquote constructive criticism, like what that actually does to your mental state. Because that's the most like damaging thing to me, because yeah, you could definitely walk away from it, but then like if you just keep hearing it over and over and over, and it's just a lame excuse for something that you really can't help for what that's worth, I mean, that takes an emotional and obviously like mental toll on you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the life of the artist. It's what we've chosen, and it's also in various other professions as well, and it's just something to keep in mind. It's taking something constructively, and if something is like way off or something's offensive, just do just kind of keep pressing on, keep moving forward, and keep making beautiful art, which is, I think, what matters.
Well, I mean, eventually that's kind of where you got to get in your headspace, right? Because I feel like, all this criticism that you take as an artist or just a creative in general, like you get to the point of, well, I mean, fuck it. I'm just going to do whatever I'm going to do. And this is it. Because the people that follow you for a reason, right? It's not because some record label says that, well, you got a little baby weight or you're just this.
Yeah, exactly. Or you don't fit into their particular mold, whatever that means.
Right. That's another thing. Like, it's so evolving and changing. Like, how can you, I don't know, predict what's going to be the thing? And so when they say like you don't fit in the mold, well, you don't even know what the mold is going to be. So
right, and there's also ageism. That's another thing. Like people factor ageism into there, which is extremely interesting to me. Like how women have a shelf life, like for a certain time, apparently, and like you said, like in the minds of these 50-year-old gray-haired dudes that are running everything.
Yeah.
But anyway, I won't even go there. I could talk forever.
Yeah. No, you should. I mean, I'm totally willing to go down the road if you want to, because I mean, it's a thing of like it's 2020. I mean, besides dealing with this pandemic situation, the world that we're in, like we're still having these BS conversations of male, female, black or white or whatever. I mean, I thought we were done with the conversation of it doesn't matter if you're black or white when Michael Jackson did the song. And so, I don't know. These continued conversations just mean that it's not fixed. And would it ever be fixed?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, it's in light of everything that's happening. I mean, it's very unfortunate, but I think the fact that everyone is going through it together globally, it creates some sort of a community in a sense. It's an unfortunate situation, regardless of the way you look at it. But at least everyone's in it together is all I can gather from that. And I think it creates humility in people as well, to know that you're not alone, that, everybody else has a family, has older parents, and they're going through the same thing. So it's in some way, it's like nobody's more special than the other. Rich or poor, anyone can get this, everyone's kind of in the same boat. So there's that. There's no special treatment for this.
Yeah. So for Sean, you guys are releasing it independently, or are you working with somebody?
So we're releasing it independently. We have a record label. It's Avondale Records. So it's mine and John's record label.
Oh, I knew that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, Avondale Records, releasing independently, and Cash Cabin Enterprises is our company. And it was such a collaborative process, Shine. It's released April the 24th. And we released Renegade Rose. No, first we released, Broken Roses as the first single, which we shot the video for. There's a video for that that's online now on YouTube. And I partnered up with the mental health organization, changedirection.org, because the subject matter of that song has to do with substance abuse and a relationship deteriorating because of mental health and depression. So that's what that song's about. And then we released the second single, Renegade Rose, and then Fixed to Fall. And, essentially, I'm just happy that these songs are going to see the light of day, really.
Yeah, there's some fun ones on there. I always enjoy songs that like in old bluegrass records, maybe like they just have like murder songs. It's not that they did the murder or anything, but it's just this awesome like fun story of this crazy backwoods situation. And I love that you have like a couple of
Are you
tracks
talking
like
about
that.
Southern Roots? Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, so Southern Roots, that was both John and I wrote that together, and it's chronicling an abused woman whose partner or husband is essentially just this raging alcoholic and just treating her terribly. And she's like, man, I'm going to take matters into my own hands. Like, this guy's going to die, right? So she, it's her plotting her revenge and sort of murdering him and burying him under a tree.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
See,
So
I love that. I love writing songs like that myself, like where it is a movie and it is telling a story. And it's a little bit of like a tip of the hat of like old school like country writing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a good fun story in song. Like that is it. It's made up.
yeah, it's made up.
Johnny Cash style.
Oh yeah. I don't encourage anyone to do anything like that in real life. Obviously, none of us
Right.
do. Like none of the older writers of the '60s that made these songs did. I mean, it's more so a story, just like you're watching a film and you're seeing these things happen on film. It's the same thing. But I obviously don't like dream of doing those things. So,
Yeah. We would have a completely different conversation if you did.
I think we'd have a problem if I was a sociopath, like for real. So
Let's talk about these inner desires.
yeah.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
No, I'm just a mom. I'm here with my dogs and my kid.
Just
and
a mom. Living my best mom life in the quarantine.
yes.
Amazing. That's funny. No, there's some like fun like story songs in this. And to me, it is like a little bit of like a classic country. And I hate to say throwback because that sounds like an age thing, but I just love that style of writing. I still even kind of do it today. It's really cinematic. Of like you feel like you could watch this movie or for whatever it's worth. I watched Dragon Song the other day too.
Oh, good. I'll have to
And-
tell John that you saw that. That's amazing. Yeah, and I was I just given birth when I shot that actually, and I had to get into the 1800s garb and
I did not know that. That's fun. That's a fun little tidbit.
yeah, so
It's
it's
just
fun.
another situation. It's so hot right now.
I
Why am
know
I in
another
a saloon?
situation where I'm like really hot clothing in the middle of a summer of some sort. So
I blame the hubs on that one. He
Yeah.
wasn't thinking that one through.
yeah, so he wrote and produced that. It was shot by David McClister. David McClister is the director, and several of our friends were involved and folks that work with us regularly. And it's kind of something that he dreamed up, and it's being released soon, or is released. I'm not sure. It's being released soon. Dragon Song, and at the Wild Bunch Film Festival, we won awards for that, and I believe at the Sunny Side Up Festival, it won some awards as well.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's like an independent vehicle, and just a creative outlet essentially is what it was, and something that he dreamed up, and I was happy to be a part of as well. And it's like an old Western short.
Yeah, I can definitely. I mean, after watching like the short and diving into your life and knowing that you're married with John, and I feel like both of you are like on this record, and I feel like, and of course you got to tell me like where it like divides in the writing room, but some of those like storytelling stuff I feel like is a John thing, and then you can add like your unique and spin on that song. I mean, is that how it was like in the writing room, especially even writing for this record?
Sometimes, like for example, Southern Roots, I had the chords in my head ahead of time. I had the melody for Southern Roots in my head. I knew I wanted it to be dark, and then he came in and was like, okay, this could be like, I guess, a murder kind of thing. So there we go. So like, there's where the concept came from. We wrote it together, but I'm used to telling stories in my songs a lot too, so it's hard to tell like who it really is at the time. So I think it's just collaborative. It depends on who has the melody first or not, who has the first idea, who kind of jams back and forth. And I don't really like to write a certain way. Like either I'll have the guitar chords, or I'll have the melody in my head first, or I'll have the concept and the title first without anything at all, like any music. And I have to say, Shine is the first record that is as collaborative as it is. Like for the Spanish stuff, other people at the time wrote that when I was a teenager because I was not experienced in writing the Spanish language particularly, even though I wrote songs in English at the time. West Coast Sessions, I wrote every single song, music and lyrics, except for like one song, which was a co-write. And always, like even on Time, which the record that's not there anymore, I just wrote all my music. So Shine was the first record in which I did it the Nashville way, the collaborative way, where I actually wrote with people, which was scary to me at first because I'm so used to doing everything by myself. But then I'm like, oh my God, this is so fun. I've made friends through this process. I've engaged with another human being. Like co-writing can be fun. It's not scary. So I don't really think that there's a right or wrong way to write, whether you're writing on your own or you're collaborating with people. But this was the first record in which songwriting was such a collaborative process, like sitting in a room with someone and co-writing a lot of this stuff. And I won't say that I will always do that from here on out with every record, but for this record, it really worked, especially with the pop, country, Americana, blues fusion.
I mean, part of the thing about making a record or just even songs in general, it's just taking those risks, right? I feel like it's putting myself in your shoes. Like, to me, it's so much of a risk writing with a life partner versus writing with people that you don't know. I'd much rather write with somebody I don't know and instead of a spouse, because to me, that's like, oh, that's when it becomes way deeper.
Yeah.
For whatever that's worth, right? Is that something like you found, like working with John?
Well, I feel like he kind of knows my tendencies as a person and like where I'm going to go creatively. And sometimes we'll surprise each other. He's like, oh my gosh, it's like you can absolutely find all these chords. I didn't know you like had that ability. You know what I mean? Or like to him, I'll be like, I didn't know you had that in you. That's cool. So it's like even discovery with a person that you know and live with every day, which is quite interesting because we're functioning on a different plane. It's a creative plane. It's not like, did you take out the trash today? So, who's going to do the dishes today? You know, it's like a whole different plane, essentially, of existence. So that was cool.
Yeah.
And then writing with strangers, I feel like that's sometimes new and exciting and fun because you don't even know this person at all. Like I'm a CSAC songwriter, and when they've put me to write with folks I don't know that maybe I met at a writer's round, and I have an idea of what their stuff is, and I kind of feel like I have an insight into their soul, but I don't know them. I don't know where they came from. I don't know where they grew up. I think like at least 20 minutes or more of that session is just getting to know the person and finding out where they're from. So yeah, I would have to say this whole record was an experiment with collaboration, songwriting collaboration. Like I'd never collaborated before because I was so used to being in my own head, particularly for the West Coast Sessions album. Like that was all like in my, I wouldn't say darkness, like there are happy songs and everything on there, but I was definitely in my own head, in my own space for like long periods of time alone. And this was just, people coming through the door, collaborating with me, writing with me, making new friends, working with my husband. So it has a different vibe, and also it's a very different genre. But I plan on experimenting with several genres. Like I never know what I'm going to do next, essentially.
Yeah, the thing is, especially like the collaboration process, there's this, I don't know, there's this like unspoken filter that's there. Because I feel like when you write a song by yourself, and maybe it depends on like the season of writer that you are, or just maybe your headspace, but that lack of filter, because you almost like just pour emotions out for whatever that's worth. But then like when you collaborate with somebody else, and that's why I'm interested, like, collaborating with your husband or writing by yourself, collaborate with John, and then bringing other people in the room that really don't know you. Even that song filter process are both entirely different, but I don't think there's a right way. But I just wonder what the thing is that is so impactful, Like when I listen to like Donovan Woods, like songwriter, and like the dude can sit there and write a song by himself, and we can name any songwriter that does it. It's just kind of like, dude, how do you do this? And it's like a great song, and it's so emotional. But I can't do that by myself.
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong way. And there are so many singers, I have to say, that are just great interpreters, and they don't even write their songs. And, I don't want to knock any of those people because, like, Celine Dion, growing up, was a hero of mine. Okay, she hasn't written songs. And
Yeah.
I don't care. She doesn't need to, because she's amazing. And she's an amazing singer and entertainer and interpreter. And there are people that were just born to give life to songs. And there are several artists like that. And it gives the publishers jobs. It gives the publishing companies jobs. It gives the writers jobs. So like I said, there is no right or wrong way for an artist, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, especially like on the record, it's always a bold statement to me, like to throw covers on a record. Like,
Oh yeah, I got a couple. on
yeah.
there.
Do you feel that way? Like, to me, as a listener, not as a critic, not as a musician, not as a songwriter, to me, like when I see that on an album, that, okay, these mean something. This has to mean something, because it's not just a generic cover with awesome range or this obscure song that's from the 40s that nobody will know or whatever. I just feel like there's something behind like putting covers on a record.
Yes. So I want to explain the two that I have on Shine. It's Seminole Wind by John Anderson and Dream, which was famously interpreted by Roy Orbison. So I'll start with the first. Seminole Wind. I grew up in Florida. I know the Everglades. I know the swamps. I've driven all throughout Florida through my childhood. The song was brought to me by John, and he's like, this would really resonate with you just being where you're from. And John Anderson's from Florida too. You should really listen to this. And I'm like, this is a cool song. And of course the original was a lot more up-tempo than the one I did. But I'm like, what if we slowed it down and I could do like this really haunting kind of creepy power ballad version of John Anderson's Seminole Wind. I mean, I think it's a cool experiment. So it ended up on the record. I was happy with it. And again, it reminds me of home. It reminds me of where I came from. So I personalized his lyrics there, and I feel very close to that song. And it's fun to sing too. Love singing that one.
Oh, heck yeah. I'm not even a singer, and I love singing it. It's John Anderson.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. And then Dream, I'm a big fan of the Jordanaires, all that beautiful background singing, and I just love playing around with my own background vocals. I wanted to record that song because I wanted to sing my own background vocals, actually. So I'm there singing with like 4 versions of myself, and I kind of just wanted to do that for fun, and it kind of ended up on the record, really. And it wasn't anything that I took super seriously at the time. I wasn't like, I'm gonna record this like Roy Orbison thing and I'm gonna make it my own. I just did it for fun, really. And it kind of stuck, and that one's fun because it's kind of like a moody kind of tune, dreamy sort of thing.
Yeah, there's this jazz influence, like because of the Johnny Mercer thing. But then like
I think Johnny Mercer was the writer.
Yeah,
I think he was.
Yeah, there's just like this thing about that song that it just fit perfectly with Roy, and I love Roy Orbison. And
so do I.
Yeah, I thought you did a great version of this. I thought it was really cool. I thought it still held like this really cool Etta James, like jazz soul kind of thing, but still having this dreamlike state, like just kind of how that original was. I thought it was a great cover. I thought it was cool.
I appreciate that coming from you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're an interesting woman. You're super mom.
Oh, I'm trying. I'm trying like everyone else.
Yeah.
Keep my head above water. But thank you for that.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
your trying looks different than my trying. Because
I'm sure your trying is just as awesome.
I don't know. I professional fall and fail all the time. But no, you're an interesting person. I just think I don't know, nothing but the best for you, especially for this record.
Oh, thank you. Well, I wish the best for you as well, and especially now and always. And we just have to try to be positive and get up every day and do what we do, and just keep treading along.
Yeah, I'll try something besides sweats next time. I'll actually get dressed. So it's also the lack of a haircut. That's kind of like where I'm at right now. I would.
Do you want to laugh? I showered. I put on like my leather jacket I'm wearing right now, my headband. I put makeup on. Like this isn't even a camera interview. I walk into my kitchen. John's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm doing an interview."
Amazing.
With like. Just with my headphones and no camera, but
that's funny.
Whatever.
I know. The rest of the world falls apart, but I look amazing. I love it.
Trying to make it happen.
That's all, folks. That was the conversation I had with Ana Cristina Cash. Gnarly person. I loved getting to know her over the phone and talking about her story a little bit. AnaCristinaCash.com. At Ana Cristina Cash is where you can follow her on socials. Remember, she's got Shine coming out April 24th. Go pre-order, pre-purchase, pre-save, whatever the pre's are, whatever you guys do with music. It's coming out April 24th. Go check it out. It's Shine. Well, that's it from us, everybody. SMI Podcast, at SMI Podcast, and of course, SMIPodcast.com for everything that you might ever want to know or follow or email us at any of that stuff that's kind of going on. I always say this: if you enjoyed this episode, just share it with a friend. Just let people know that this exists. Maybe it's something, of course, a conversation you can relate to, you think somebody else could relate to. Pretty sure they would appreciate it as well. I'm here for you, peeps. Of course, go talk to us at SMI Podcast. You guys are alone in your mental headspace trying to figure this thing out. So am I. But also, just be human, be kind, be loving, be nice to one another. All right, guys. I love you. Take care of yourself. Do all those things that I just said. But just be happy. All right. Happy surviving, everybody.